I never meant to end up here, in this place, in this silence, in this aftermath of a moment that split my soul clean down the middle. I was supposed to be the good one, the loyal sister, the solid one, the kind of woman who keeps boundaries like sacred oaths. But life has this way of unspooling you. Not all at once, no, slowly, softly, until all the rules you swore you lived by turn into suggestions you forget how to follow. It started the day she called. My sister asked if I could check on him while she was out of town for work. Just stop by, she said. Make sure he eats. You know how he forgets. And I said yes, because I always say yes, especially to her. He opened the door like he'd been waiting, not just for me, for someone, for a presence, the kind that fills a room without demanding it. We didn't hug. We just stood there in the quiet, then smiled like we both knew what loneliness looked like, and were too tired to name it. We sat on the couch, watched reruns of shows we half remembered, ate takeout like it was communion. The kind that doesn't save you, but makes you feel human again. The first few visits were simple. A couch, a shared silence, nothing sinful about that. But something was growing. Not lust, not yet. Something slower. A warmth that made the air feel thinner. I laughed when he reminded me of the time he spilled red wine on my sister's graduation dress. He laughed, too. And for the first time in months, my laugh didn't feel borrowed. It belonged to me. I started staying a little longer. Brought over wine instead of water, wore perfume without thinking, looked in the mirror a little longer before I left my house. Tiny choices that didn't feel like choices until it was too late. We talked more. Not surface stuff, the kind of conversations that make you forget what hour it is. About being lonely in a full house. About how it hurts to be loved in theory, but invisible in practice. He told me things I didn't think husbands were allowed to say. I listened like it was a prayer. Like his pain gave mine permission to speak. And then came the night. There was no kiss first. Just his hand resting near mine. Then touching it. No words, just breath. Just the weight of what we were both pretending wasn't happening. When he finally leaned in, it wasn't desperate. It wasn't fast. It felt inevitable. Like we were ships who forgot they were ever docked anywhere else. He kissed me like I'd been missing my whole life. Like he'd been waiting to remember how it felt to be seen. And I let him, because the ache in me was louder than the rules I swore I'd never break. We didn't talk after. Not really. We sat there, two people draped in guilt that hadn't quite found its voice yet. The next morning everything had changed. Same room, same coffee, but the warmth was gone. He didn't look at me the same. And I didn't blame him. I told myself it was one night. That it didn't mean what it did. But that's a lie I carry now, tucked behind my ribs like a bruise I press on just to feel something. I think about her. My sister. The way she trusted me with everything, even him. And I wonder what my face would look like in her eyes now. Would she still see her sister? Or just the betrayal wrapped in skin that used to feel familiar? He hasn't reached out. And I haven't knocked on that door again. Not because I don't want to, but because I know the next time I won't leave. And some lines, once erased, redraw themselves as scars. What haunts me isn't what we did, it's how easy it was. How natural it felt to be seen, to be wanted. How dangerous it is to be touched in the places you thought no one could ever reach. He made me feel alive again, and I hate him for that, and myself even more. I told myself I could forget, that I could fold that night into the corners of my memory like an old letter. Unopened, unread, unspoken. But forgetting isn't silence, it's noise you try to ignore, and mine started small. The wine glass I left behind on his kitchen counter, the sweater I forgot on his chair, the way his cologne still lived in the fibers of it, when I pulled it from the laundry basket days later. I didn't wash it. I told myself I just hadn't gotten around to it. Another lie, stacked neatly beside the others. I saw him a week later, by accident, at the grocery store. A mundane place, now suddenly holy and dangerous. He looked at me like he didn't know if he was allowed to smile. So he didn't. He just nodded, like we were neighbors. Like we hadn't undressed each other with a reverence that felt like prayer. Like I didn't know the sound he made, when he whispered my name against my skin. I nodded back, but my chest ached in that way only unfinished things do. That night, I stared at the ceiling in my apartment, remembering the way he held me. Not tightly, but like something precious. And it hurt more than anything I'd felt in years. Because I knew that tenderness wasn't meant for me. It never was. My phone buzzed the next day. A message from her. He seemed distant lately. Everything okay when you checked on him? My fingers hovered over the screen. Yes, all good. Send. Another lie. This one tasted like rust in my mouth. Sharp, permanent. But the lies get easier. That's the cruel part. They start to fit you like second skin. I told myself we had stopped. That one night wasn't a pattern. But the truth is, it didn't stop. Not really. Not when I still dreamt about the way his thumb brushed my cheek like I was fragile and worth holding. Not when I caught myself scrolling through our old messages, heart thudding at every little, "How are you?" We didn't see each other. But we weren't gone. We were paused. Two people orbiting a moment we pretended never happened, but kept coming back to in the dark. Then came the second time. It was raining. Of course it was. That poetic kind of downpour that makes everything feel cinematic. She was still out of town. He texted me. "Can you drop off the keys you still have? I should have left them at the door. Should have walked away. But I didn't." I stepped inside, wet hair, soaked shoes, heart already betraying me before my mouth could. He didn't kiss me this time. Not right away. We stood there, staring, the keys in my hand trembling just slightly. He took them. Held onto them longer than he needed to. Our fingers touched, and I broke. This time, I kissed him. Not because I wanted to claim him, but because I missed the version of myself I was in his arms. We didn't undress in urgency. We peeled each other slowly, like we were both afraid of what we'd find underneath this time. The silence between us wasn't warm anymore. It was weighted. Like we both knew we were already too far in. He whispered her name once, by accident. I froze. He froze. We didn't speak of it. Just kept going. Because stopping would mean facing everything we'd done. And neither of us were brave enough for that. When it was over, I cried. Not loud. Just enough for him to notice and pretend he didn't. He turned away. We lay in the bed like strangers. Except strangers don't share guilt this deep. Strangers don't remember the sound of your heart breaking mid-kiss. When I got dressed, he didn't say anything. I think he wanted to. But what can you say when the thing that made you feel most alive is also the thing that might destroy everything? I walked out in silence, into the rain, let it soak me like punishment, like confession, and still, I didn't regret it, not fully, because regret would mean I didn't find something real in him. And I did, I still do, but now every mirror feels like judgment. Every time I hear her voice, my chest tightens like it's trying to keep the secret from slipping out. She still trusts me. She still smiles like nothing's broken. And that's the worst part. Because everything is. Time didn't move the way it used to. Not after the second time. The days bled into each other like bruises, faint at first, then darker, deeper. And I was still pretending. Pretending I could live a life where I saw her smile, and didn't feel the crack in my chest widen. Pretending I could hold our secret like a locked box, and not feel it rattle louder every time I spoke her name. I stopped answering his texts. He stopped sending them. It was an unspoken agreement. We didn't know how to be casual anymore. But silence doesn't equal peace. It just makes space for guilt to breathe. One afternoon, she called me laughing. Said she was planning a weekend away for their anniversary. Asked if I thought he'd like the hotel near the lake. She said he'd always loved quiet places. I didn't say anything for a moment too long. She asked if the line cut out. I lied. Again, said I was distracted, said I was fine, but I wasn't. I was screaming inside, and still I smiled. Because that's what betrayal looks like, isn't it? Not always sharp, not always dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, just a nod, a grin, a lie wrapped in warmth. The storm came 2 weeks later. She showed up at my apartment, unannounced, eyes red, voice hollow. She didn't even sit down. Is there something you want to tell me? That's what she asked. My body went still. I felt like a photograph, frozen mid-moment, unable to escape what was already coming. She wasn't guessing. She knew. I opened my mouth. Tried to find the version of the truth that might hurt less. There isn't one, I told her. Not everything, but that it was once. That it meant nothing. Another lie. Even now I couldn't stop lying to protect us. Or maybe just myself. She didn't cry. That's what wrecked me most. She just looked at me like she didn't know who I was anymore. I trusted you, she said. Not with anger. Just this raw, exhausted ache. Like the words weighed more than her body could carry. She left without slamming the door. She didn't need to. The silence she left behind did the damage. I collapsed on the floor after she left, cried into the carpet like I could bury what I'd done in the fibers. But it was too late. The truth had left my mouth, and it doesn't go back in. I didn't hear from either of them for days, then weeks. I don't know if they stayed together. I don't know if they talked about it, screamed about it, or just let it rot quietly between them like something spoiled in the dark. He never reached out. Not once. Not even to say goodbye. And that's the part that lingers. That the person who made me feel alive also made me feel disposable. That the man who once looked at me like I was the only one who understood let me carry this shame alone. But maybe I deserved that. Because love, real love, doesn't come at the cost of someone else's trust. And what we had, as beautiful as it felt in those moments, was born in betrayal. Now, I live with the echo of her voice. That one sentence she said without shaking. I trusted you. It plays in my head every time I close my eyes. Louder than any scream, sharper than any slap. Because you don't get to come back from that kind of hurt. Some nights, I still dream of him. Not the man he was, but the man I imagined him to be. The one who held me like he knew the language of my pain. But even that dream is fading. And maybe that's how it should be. Because some stories don't end in forgiveness. Some just end. And leave you standing in the wreckage, learning how to breathe again, one broken truth at a time. Months passed. Not quickly, not gently. They dragged across my skin like sandpaper, rough, relentless, unforgiving. I stopped checking my phone, stopped waiting for closure that would never come. She never called again. Not once. And that silence became a language of its own. A story we both agreed not to finish. I moved apartments. Changed the curtains, the coffee mug, the scent I wore. But the past has a way of living in your bones. I could still feel her trust, crumbling in my hands. Still taste his name in the back of my throat when I tried to speak of anything else. I didn't date. Didn't look for love. Didn't believe I deserved it. But healing doesn't come all at once. It sneaks in, softly, like spring after a brutal winter. Unannounced, unasked for. But somehow still welcome. It was a bookstore. On a Tuesday. I was picking up a novel I'd read 100 times before. Something about familiarity that still felt safe. He was standing in the same aisle. Leather jacket. A little awkward smile. He made some dumb joke about the author's name. And I laughed. Not the way I used to. Not the broken kind of laugh that tried to hide pain. But something real. We talked. About books mostly. And silence too. He said he liked the way I paused before speaking. Like I was choosing my words carefully. I told him I was still learning how to speak without apology. We didn't fall fast. We walked. Two wounded people circling the possibility of each other. Careful not to press too hard. He never asked about my past. Never prodded for stories I wasn't ready to tell. But when I did tell him, weeks later, curled up on his couch, hands trembling, voice soft, he didn't flinch. He listened. Really listened. The kind of listening that doesn't try to fix you. Just holds space for the parts of you still learning how to heal. I don't see you as broken, he said. I see you as surviving. That night, when he touched me, it wasn't to claim. It wasn't to distract. It was reverent, like I was something he wanted to memorize slowly. He undressed me the way someone unfolds a letter they've waited years to read. With care. With awe. With patience. His hands didn't ask for anything. They offered. It wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about building something in the shadow of it. Something that didn't need to be perfect to be true. We made love. And that's the only way I can describe it. Like two people who had known pain intimately and were finally choosing softness. No lies. No secrets. Just skin, breath, and the quiet kind of connection that asks nothing but presence. When it was over, he didn't roll away. He stayed. His hand on my waist, his breath at my neck. No words. Just warmth. And I cried. Because I didn't think I'd ever feel that again. Safe. Held. Wanted without shame. In the morning, I watched the light move across his face. Thought about how love doesn't always come clean. Sometimes it comes after the wreckage. Sometimes it finds you covered in your worst decisions, and loves you anyway. Not in spite of them, but through them. And maybe that's what redemption looks like. Not forgiveness from the people you hurt, but learning how to be someone worth loving again. I still dream of her sometimes. Still see her smile. Still hear the echo of that sentence. I trusted you. But now, when I wake up, there's a hand in mine. A heartbeat beside me. And though the guilt never leaves completely, neither does the possibility of becoming someone better. So I hold both. The wound and the warmth. The memory and the man beside me. The past I can't erase and the future I'm choosing anyway.